In the quiet suburban town of Amityville, New York, stands a large Dutch colonial house that has become infamous for its chilling history. In 1974, this house was the site of a gruesome mass murder. Ronald DeFeo Jr. brutally killed 6 members of his family while they slept, claiming later that voices in the house had compelled him to commit the murders. A little over a year later, the Lutz family moved into the house. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, were initially thrilled to find such a beautiful home at an affordable price. However, their excitement quickly turned to terror. From the very first night, the family experienced bizarre and terrifying events. George Lutz would wake up every morning at 3:15 a.m., the exact time the DeFeo murders were said to have occurred. The house was plagued with strange noises, foul odors, and sudden cold spots. One night, Kathy Lutz woke up to find herself levitating above her bed. On another occasion, she saw her children's faces distorted into monstrous figures. The family dog constantly barked at something unseen and refused to enter certain rooms. George's behavior became increasingly erratic. He grew obsessed with the fireplace and often complained of feeling a cold, invisible presence following him. The Lutz children were tormented by unseen forces, and one of them even claimed to have seen a demonic pig with glowing red eyes staring at him through a window. The family's breaking point came 28 days after moving in. They fled the house in the middle of the night, leaving all their belongings behind. They later claimed that they were driven out by a malevolent force that they could no longer endure. The story of the Amityville house has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, with many people debating the truth behind the Lutz family's claims. Some believe it was a hoax concocted for financial gain, while others insist that something truly evil resides within the house. To this day, the house remains a point of fascination and fear, with many visitors reporting strange occurrences and an overwhelming sense of dread. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the tale of the Amityville house continues to send shivers down the spines of those who hear it. After the Lutz family fled the house, they reached out to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were renowned for their work in the field. The Warrens agreed to investigate the house, along with a team of researchers and reporters. During their investigation, Lorraine, a clairvoyant, claimed to have sensed a demonic presence in the house. She described it as a dark, powerful entity that thrived on fear and negativity. The Warrens conducted a séance, during which Lorraine experienced visions of the DeFeo murders and the malevolent spirit that she believed had influenced Ronald DeFeo Jr. One of the researchers, Jean Campbell, captured a chilling photograph during the investigation. The image showed a small boy with glowing eyes peeking out from one of the rooms. The boy bore a striking resemblance to one of the DeFeo children, though no children were present during the investigation. Despite these findings, skepticism remained high. Some believed that the Lutz family and the Warrens had fabricated the story for fame and profit. Critics pointed out inconsistencies in the Lutz's accounts and noted that the family had undergone financial difficulties prior to moving into the Amityville house. However, the story continued to grow in notoriety. The house changed hands several times over the years, with each new owner reporting strange occurrences, though none as dramatic as those experienced by the Lutz family. The house was eventually renovated, and its distinctive eye-like windows were altered in an attempt to downplay its eerie reputation. Despite the changes, the legend of the Amityville house endures. In recent years, several paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters have visited the site, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. Some have reported unexplained noises, sudden drops in temperature, and the feeling of being watched. In one particularly eerie account, a group of investigators using electronic voice phenomena, EVP, devices recorded a voice whispering, "Get out," echoing the experiences of the Lutz family. Others claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving through the house and felt an overwhelming sense of dread in certain rooms. Local residents have their own tales to tell. Some neighbors reported seeing strange lights in the windows at night, even when the house was unoccupied. Others spoke of a heavy, oppressive atmosphere that seemed to linger around the property. The Amityville house remains one of the most infamous haunted locations in the world. Whether you believe in the supernatural or see it as an elaborate hoax, the story continues to captivate and terrify. It serves as a reminder of the thin line between the seen and the unseen, and the mysteries that may lie just beyond our understanding. To this day, people are drawn to the house, hoping to uncover the truth or experience a brush with the paranormal. And as long as the house stands, the legend of the Amityville haunting will continue to send chills down the spines of those who dare to explore its dark history. Years passed, and the Amityville house stood quietly, an unassuming residence with a dark past. Despite its renovations and attempts to erase its sinister reputation, the house continued to draw curious onlookers and paranormal investigators alike. One night, a new family moved in, unaware of the full extent of the house's history. The Johnsons, a couple with 2 young children, saw the house as their dream home. It was spacious, affordable, and in a good neighborhood. They hoped it would be the perfect place to raise their children. However, almost immediately after moving in, the Johnsons began to experience strange occurrences. Mrs. Johnson, Anna, would often hear whispers in the hallways, even when she was home alone. Her husband, Mark, dismissed her concerns, attributing the noises to an old house settling. But as the days went by, the incidents became harder to ignore. One evening, while Anna was preparing dinner, she heard her daughter, Lily, talking to someone in her room. Assuming it was an imaginary friend, Anna thought nothing of it. But when she entered Lily's room, she was shocked to find her daughter staring at the wall, conversing with an unseen presence. When asked who she was talking to, Lily simply replied, "The nice man who lives here." Mark, still skeptical, decided to install security cameras throughout the house, hoping to catch an intruder or explain the strange occurrences. What he found instead were chilling. Footage showed furniture moving on its own, doors slamming shut without cause, and shadowy figures appearing in the corners of rooms. Desperate and frightened, the Johnsons reached out to a local paranormal investigation group. The team, led by seasoned investigator Sarah Mitchell, arrived with various equipment designed to detect supernatural activity. During their investigation, Sarah's team experienced numerous unsettling events. EVP recordings captured disembodied voices pleading for help, and thermal cameras detected cold spots moving through the house. One team member even claimed to have been pushed by an invisible force, leaving him shaken and unwilling to continue. Sarah, using her sensitivity to spirits, sensed a deep sadness and anger within the house. She believed that the spirits of the DeFeo family, as well as other entities attracted by the house's dark history, were trapped and tormented. She recommended a cleansing ritual to help the spirits find peace and to protect the Johnson family. The cleansing ritual was a solemn affair. Sarah, along with a local priest and the Johnson family, walked through the house, reciting prayers and burning sage. As they moved from room to room, the air grew heavier and the atmosphere more oppressive. At one point, the lights flickered, and a chilling wind swept through the house, despite all the windows being closed. In the basement, where the sense of dread was strongest, Sarah felt a powerful presence resisting their efforts. She urged the Johnsons to remain strong and continue the ritual. As the prayers intensified, a loud crash echoed through the house, and the temperature dropped sharply. Suddenly, it was over. The air lightened, and an overwhelming sense of peace filled the room. Following the ritual, the Johnsons noticed a significant decrease in paranormal activity. The house felt warmer, more welcoming. Lily no longer spoke of the nice man, and the strange noises ceased. While occasional cold spots and flickering lights still occurred, the Johnsons felt they could live with these minor disturbances. Sarah and her team remained in touch with the Johnsons, visiting periodically to ensure the house remained peaceful. While the house's dark history could never be erased, it seemed that the spirits had finally found some measure of rest. The Amityville house continues to be a place of fascination and fear, but for the Johnsons, it is now a home, a place where they can build new memories and move beyond the shadows of the past. Yet, as with any house with such a storied history, there will always be those who wonder what truly lies within its walls, waiting for the next family to uncover its secrets. Months passed, and the Johnsons slowly settled into a routine. While the house had grown quieter since the cleansing ritual, small, inexplicable occurrences persisted. Objects would occasionally be found in odd places, and there were times when a faint whisper could be heard in the dead of night. One day, while exploring the attic, Mark stumbled upon a dusty old trunk hidden in a corner. Intrigued, he opened it to find an assortment of old photographs, letters, and a worn-out journal. The journal belonged to a previous owner, a man named Samuel Harper, who had lived in the house in the early 1900s. As Mark read through the journal, he discovered that Samuel had been an amateur paranormal investigator, documenting his own experiences with the supernatural in the house. Samuel's journal detailed numerous encounters with spirits, describing them as both benign and malevolent. He wrote about strange rituals he performed, trying to communicate with the entities and, in some cases, attempting to banish them. One entry, in particular, caught Mark's attention. Samuel had written about a hidden room in the basement, a place he referred to as the Red Room. Mark, driven by curiosity and a sense of duty to protect his family, decided to search for the hidden room. He enlisted the help of Sarah Mitchell and her team, hoping they could shed light on Samuel Harper's findings. Together, they combed through the basement, tapping on walls and examining the floor for any hidden entrances. After hours of searching, they found it. Behind a false wall, concealed by old shelves and dusty boxes, was a small, red-painted room. The air inside was thick with a palpable sense of unease. Strange symbols were scrawled on the walls, and the remnants of old, melted candles littered the floor. In the center of the room was a makeshift altar, covered in dust and cobwebs. Sarah felt a wave of dread wash over her as she stepped into the room. She sensed that this was a place of great power, where the boundaries between the living and the dead were thin. The symbols on the walls were unfamiliar, but they radiated a dark energy. Sarah knew they had to proceed with caution. Believing that the Red Room was the source of the lingering disturbances, Sarah decided to perform another cleansing ritual, this time focusing on the hidden space. She enlisted the help of a more experienced medium, Margaret Hale, who had dealt with powerful entities before. Margaret and Sarah prepared for the ritual with the utmost care. They brought protective charms, holy water, and a variety of cleansing herbs. As they began, the air grew colder, and an oppressive silence fell over the house. The Johnsons watched from a safe distance, their anxiety palpable. The ritual started smoothly, but as they reached the midpoint, the room seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. The walls shook, and the symbols began to glow with an eerie red light. Margaret, unfazed, continued her incantations, calling upon protective spirits to aid them. Suddenly, a dark shadowy figure appeared in the center of the room, writhing and contorting. It let out a guttural scream that echoed through the house, causing everyone to cover their ears. Margaret, with unwavering resolve, intensified her prayers. The figure lashed out, but a protective barrier seemed to hold it at bay. After what felt like hours, the figure began to dissipate, its screams turning into faint whispers before vanishing entirely. The room grew still, the oppressive energy lifting. Sarah and Margaret, exhausted but relieved, completed the ritual, sealing the room with protective wards to prevent any further disturbances. The Johnsons felt an immediate change in the house. The air was lighter, and the pervasive sense of dread had lifted. While the house still retained an aura of mystery, it no longer felt threatening. The family decided to keep the Red Room concealed, a reminder of the house's dark past and the resilience they had shown in facing it. They continued their lives, grateful for the peace they had finally found. Years later, the Amityville house remains a subject of fascination for paranormal enthusiasts. The Johnsons occasionally share their story, hoping to provide insight and caution to those intrigued by the supernatural. The house stands as a testament to the enduring battle between light and dark, a place where the past and present intertwine in a delicate balance. And while the spirits may rest for now, the house remains ever vigilant, a silent guardian of its secrets, waiting for the day when someone new will uncover its mysteries once more. As the years went by, the Johnsons' life in the Amityville house became relatively normal. The occasional strange noise or flickering light was now more an oddity than a terror. They had grown accustomed to their home and its quirks, finding comfort in the routine of their lives. However, the peace was unexpectedly disrupted when a renowned paranormal documentary crew reached out to the Johnsons, eager to film an episode about the infamous house. Initially hesitant, the Johnsons eventually agreed, hoping to put any lingering fears to rest by confronting them head-on. The crew arrived with a multitude of high-tech equipment designed to capture any paranormal activity. They set up cameras, audio recorders, and various sensors throughout the house. Leading the investigation was Dr. Evelyn Carter, a well-respected parapsychologist known for her methodical approach and skepticism towards exaggerated claims. From the start, the crew experienced minor disturbances. Cameras shutting off unexpectedly, unexplained technical malfunctions, and strange cold spots moving through the house. Dr. Carter, while intrigued, remained cautious, attributing most occurrences to environmental factors. As part of their investigation, the crew decided to hold a séance, hoping to make contact with any lingering spirits. The Johnsons, though nervous, agreed to participate, believing it might help to finally understand the forces at work in their home. The séance began in the living room, with everyone seated around a large wooden table. Candles flickered in the dim light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Dr. Carter led the group, speaking in a calm, authoritative voice. As they concentrated, the temperature in the room began to drop. The atmosphere grew tense, and the air felt thick and heavy. Suddenly, the table began to vibrate, and a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. Dr. Carter, maintaining her composure, asked if any spirits were present. The silence was deafening until a low, guttural voice responded through the EVP device. "Leave." The crew, now visibly shaken, continued to ask questions. The voice returned sporadically, each time growing more aggressive. Objects around the room began to move on their own, and one of the cameras captured a shadowy figure darting across the room. Dr. Carter decided to escalate her efforts. She invoked a protective incantation, hoping to shield the group from any malevolent forces. The voice responded with a chilling laugh, followed by a series of cryptic messages that seemed to hint at a deeper, darker secret buried within the house. Determined to uncover the truth, Dr. Carter and the Johnsons revisited the Red Room. They carefully examined the symbols and the makeshift altar, seeking clues to the entity's identity. Hidden within a crevice in the wall, they found a small, leather-bound book, much older than Samuel Harper's journal. The book contained detailed descriptions of occult rituals and references to an ancient, malevolent spirit known as Azrael. Azrael, according to the book, was a powerful entity that fed on fear and suffering. It had been summoned to the house long before the DeFeo murders, during a ritual gone wrong. The entity had grown stronger over the years, feeding off the tragic events that transpired within the house. Realizing the gravity of their discovery, Dr. Carter knew they had to confront and banish Azrael once and for all. She enlisted the help of Margaret Hale, the experienced medium who had assisted during the previous cleansing. Together, they prepared for a final, intense ritual. On a stormy night, with thunder rumbling in the distance, they gathered in the Red Room. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and fear. Margaret and Dr. Carter began the ritual, invoking protective spirits and calling upon higher powers to aid them. As the ritual progressed, the room grew colder, and the walls seemed to close in. Azrael's presence became palpable. As the ritual reached its peak, the air in the Red Room became almost unbearable. Azrael's presence was palpable, a heavy, oppressive force that seemed to suffocate the very breath from their lungs. The candles flickered violently, and the symbols on the walls glowed with a malevolent energy. Margaret and Dr. Carter stood firm, their voices rising above the howling wind that had suddenly whipped through the room. They chanted ancient incantations, their words imbued with the power of countless rituals performed throughout the ages. The room shook, and the oppressive force seemed to lash out, causing the floor to vibrate and objects to fly off the shelves. The Johnsons, watching from a safe distance, held hands tightly, their faces pale with fear. They could feel the intensity of the battle raging within the hidden room, a confrontation between light and dark, good and evil. Suddenly, Azrael manifested fully. A dark, shadowy figure, more terrifying than anything they had seen before, loomed in the center of the room. It radiated a cold that chilled them to the bone. Its eyes, red and filled with hatred, locked onto Margaret and Dr. Carter. Margaret, summoning all her strength, stepped forward and held up a talisman she had prepared specifically for this moment. "By the power of light, I banish you," she cried, her voice unwavering. Azrael shrieked, a sound so piercing that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. The shadowy figure writhed and twisted, trying to escape the power that Margaret and Dr. Carter wielded. But they held their ground, continuing their chants, the talisman glowing brighter with each word. With a final, agonizing scream, Azrael began to dissipate. The dark energy that filled the room swirled violently before being sucked into the talisman, which glowed with an intense, pure light. The oppressive force lifted, and the room fell silent. The candles flickered once more before settling into a steady, calm flame. Margaret and Dr. Carter, exhausted but victorious, completed the ritual, sealing the room and ensuring that Azrael could never return. The heavy atmosphere that had plagued the house for so long was gone, replaced by a serene, peaceful air. The Johnsons, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, thanked Margaret and Dr. Carter for their bravery and dedication. The house, once a place of terror and dread, now felt like a true home. The shadows had lifted, and the lingering spirits, freed from Azrael's grasp, found peace. The documentary crew captured the entire ordeal, though they decided to keep some of the more intense footage private, out of respect for the Johnsons and the spirits that had been laid to rest. The story of the Amityville house was shared with the world, but this time, it ended on a note of hope and redemption. Years later, the Johnsons continued to live in the Amityville house, now a symbol of resilience and the power of light over darkness. They welcomed visitors, sharing their experiences and the lessons they had learned. The house, no longer a place of fear, became a beacon for those seeking to understand the supernatural and the strength of the human spirit. The legend of the Amityville house endured, but it was now a story of triumph and peace, a testament to the courage of those who dared to confront the unknown and emerge victorious. And though the house held its secrets and mysteries, it stood as a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light can prevail.